I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. So let's go ahead and introduce two of the best people you'll ever beat. They are staples at Sherdog.com. First, we have the senior editor, the jack of all trades, who has mastered them all, Mr. Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
I'm doing real well. It was an extremely packed weekend of mixed martial arts that we just finished up here. Well, combat sports in general. Like, I'm not even going to pretend I watched every single thing because just not enough eyeballs in my head or hours in the day. But I watched a lot, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Definitely a very busy weekend. I unfortunately had to skip Kell Brook and Amir Khan, so I'm got to go back and check that out. I didn't really see any of BKFC. I know we'll touch on that a little bit later. But anyway, let's move on to introduce the associate editor of Sherdog.com, the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers, Mr. J. Pettry. What's up?
This was a very busy weekend of fights, and it's funny because next weekend's going to even be busier. There's even more fights on the slate than this past week. I don't know how it can be that you look at all the fights and you go, wow, there was like 40 or 50 fights. I don't have the number like I usually do. But there wasn't a ton of huge takeaways. Like, I didn't learn a whole lot, but I want to learn from you guys today. But I will give you guys some knowledge that I'm pretty sure you might already know. And if not, you're about to know, because 23 is the stat of the week. And that is an obvious 23 because Jim, whatever nickname you want to give him, Miller, earned his 23rd win in the octagon. 23 wins, tying Donald Cerrone for the record. And at this rate, he could pass him in a couple months. Donald Cerrone, of course, is fighting Joe Lozon in April or May now. I know they just pushed the fight to UFC 274, I think. So whenever that is. But Jim, all the words Miller, 23 wins in the UFC because you can't stop this man.
An absolute workhorse. So we're definitely going to show Jim Miller a little love later on in the broadcast. But before we get into things, remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. All right, gentlemen, let's get this conversation started here. Jamahal Hill, spectacular knockout over Johnny Walker, like literally shutting the lights out on him. That punch landed. Johnny Walker like his brain just shut off, and he flies back, makes instant memes. They flew across the timeline within seconds of Walker's body hitting the ground. Jamahal Hill, man, with that spectacular knockout over the number 10 ranked light heavyweight in the division, has he earned the respect that he wants and his desire to face a top contender next? What's your take, gentlemen?
I think he absolutely has. It's impressive how kind of poised and calm he is in the cage for somebody with, I think, 11 or 12 professional fights at this point. And he's already earned that because his wins over Walker, and before that, his win over Ovin St. Preux, he's already beaten kind of borderline ranked guys. And while, yeah, he did lose to Paul Craig. And for one thing, I mean, Paul Craig is a sneaky, high rankable guy himself right now, but it's also, I'm not going to call anything a fluke, but if they fight 10 times, it doesn't look like that more than once. Like, I don't know if I don't know if Craig wins 3 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10 times, but it only looks like that once. So I don't push Hill too far back for that. I think he's earned a top 5-ish guy. On the Sherdog post show, I was pulling for Anthony Smith to be next because Smith's won 3 in a row. He's proven that he's still only losing to the best of the best of the best. But until Glover Teixeira and Yuri Prochazka sort things out, he's got kind of a roadblock to getting back to a title shot. That's a great matchup. But now I see the Volkan Oezdemir is calling to fight with Hill. I'm all for it. Anytime fighters want to do their own matchmaking and it's even remotely appropriate competitively, let him do it.
Makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? I mean, the Volkan fight, it kind of made itself, which is odd because I thought Oezdemir's on a pretty significant skid compared to, he came out shot out of a cannon, which seems to happen for UFC light heavyweights. They'll come out of nowhere, they'll blaze through the division, and then something will hit a wall and drop back down and lose a couple fights. I mean, Anthony Smith did the same thing when he moved up from middleweight. You can think of all these different kind of contenders that have done that.
Hell, Johnny Walker did it.
Johnny Walker did it. You hear Prochaska very well could hit that wall, and suddenly his wacky, crazy style will be like, oh no, I'm now out wrestled by Alexander Rakic. What do I do? And oh no, Magomed Ankalaev is hurting me. So you can see this happening all across the board. But what Hill has done in his last 4 fights has been uber impressive. I would disagree with you, Duffy. I think Paul Craig probably could do what he did to Hill at least one more time because he's so strange. But I think a referee that's a little less negligent would actually pick up on the dislocated arm. But you can, because Paul Craig's the kind of guy that he makes fluke submission wins. He makes what look like flukes happen. But they're not flukes when he's consistently able to drop down and suddenly hit a literal last second submission on Magomed Ankalaev. I thought Gazimira and Tigulog, I thought there was he got hurt or was on the ground and then threw a triangle. So he can make these weird things happen. I'm ready for Hill to move up to that next echelon of talent. And I think Oezdemir is the perfect guy because if not that, you go for like a Dom Reyes, a former title challenger trying to get back on track. But I really do always like winners fighting winners. And I can't see many guys in the division that make sense other than going up there. And I don't think I want to see Magomed Ankalaev fight Jamahal Hill. I think that's a step down for Ankalaev, and he doesn't deserve that. So maybe Smith because he's floating around there. But I think they match made Hill and Oezdemir match made their fight, and that makes total sense because then we can have a first round knockout of some kind, either a boop or a sweet dream, and I'm okay with either.
Yeah, I mean, kind of all good scenarios here. The thing with Jamahal Hill, I mean, he's proven himself a couple times over now that he will deliver on the action front. So you kind of compare him up and just see what happens. But as much as I want to give attention to Jamahal Hill on this one, I think it's kind of hard to focus on him, but so much because he still just seems so fresh to me. He still seems so new as a top ranking prospect. But let's talk about Jimmy Walker. Excuse me, Johnny Walker. Jimmy Walker.
That would be dynamite, man.
Yeah, that would be dynamite.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun.
Damn. All right. So I think Johnny Walker definitely deserves some discussion here. So very publicized his move to SBG Ireland. Since then, he has been 0 for 2 in the octagon. 2 rough performances. I mean, getting knocked out, getting styled on, it's just hasn't been a good look for him since he made the transition over to SBG Ireland. Is this Johnny Walker hitting his ceiling as Johnny Walker, or is this Johnny Walker SBG Ireland hitting its ceiling?
This is not a general bash on SBG Ireland. Like, I mean, there are some camps that that have better overall results than others. There are some that have been very successful for a very long time. There are some that come along and they're just a flash in the pan, and then you don't hear much from them. But in every case, it comes down to matching up the right fighters with the right coaches. Like Matt Hume's coaching style works with a type of fighter that Ray Longo's coaching style wouldn't work with. So all I'm going to say here is this is not working out for Johnny Walker. That much is for certain. He's really not fixed any of the things that were horribly, horribly wrong with him when he hit his ceiling. Because when he hit his ceiling, like what did he knock out? His first 3 UFC opponents, or he finished his first 4 and like 3 of them were like sub 2-minute knockouts. Then he ran into like the Corey Andersons of the world. All of a sudden we found out that okay, his footwork is terrible. He is super powerful, but it's like defensively extremely hittable and extremely porous. So as long as you're not flabbergasted and taken out of your rhythm by how aggressive and wild he is, you can catch him and you can put him down. Like, and or at least you can just like soundly handle him like Thiago Santos did. those things haven't been fixed. His footwork is still terrible. Like he's still like literally tripping over his own feet as he goes careening across the octagon, chin all the way up in the air. And he's powerful enough that it made for a wild 3 minutes. Like every kick he landed off Hill's guard, I was waiting to see if Hill's arm was going to come out of his socket again. But yeah, I mean, I called this fight. I said, Hill's not going to be flustered. He's too calm. He's going to like back up, find his space and just put Walker down in the first round. That's exactly what happened. So I don't know if we found like Johnny Walker's ceiling at 205, but he needs a complete retooling of his game, and thus far he's not gotten it to SBG.
I gave Johnny Walker not a pass on the Thiago Santos fight, but he looked different. Like his approach to the fight was different, whether it was because he was preparing for 5 rounds or because he had a brand new camp. I didn't know. And because I didn't know, I thought, okay, he's just kind of getting used to working with the SBG team because it's very different than what he was with Imperio. I think Imperio Fight IF. And that was obviously a very different style of coaching and even in terms of language, just everything is all different. So I thought, okay, we're going to see maybe Johnny Walker come out. I kind of took a flyer on Walker and said, okay, Hill has had impressive performances. But I think Walker just has just that little X factor that's going to bug him. He's going to get caught because Hill loves that big right hand, and I thought he's probably going to hit. He's probably going to land it on Walker, but Walker has the ability to time a flying knee, like very few guys have the ability to. And what you said, Duffy, I was going to highlight that because there were some gifs going on Twitter, videos, little clips of him literally tripping over himself, showing that his footwork has appeared to have gotten worse since going to a camp known for having good footwork. I use quotes because I can't really say that it's the good footwork of the camp teaching that to their fighters, or it's that their fighters already have good footwork and they're, taking that. I did a look at SBG Ireland because I don't want to slam on them just, anecdotally to say, oh yeah, Connor hasn't done well. But if you look at their roster and in terms of the roster that's still there and haven't moved on or gone to a different, one of their bajillion, they have one in Kalispell, Montana now. So one of the many offshoots of SBG Ireland, the main camp is really struggling on the major stage. Like Makwan Americani is very, very, has really struggled. Gunnar Nelson took some time and he's going on. There's just a ton of different fighters. I think John Phillips, the Welsh wrecking machine, who we made tons of jokes about, I believe he was an SBG Ireland guy for, I think, his whole UFC tenure. And you keep going down the list. Artem Lobov, obviously, we crack jokes about him. He's over at, I forget what the heck it's called, that bare knuckle organization, Russia, Matchup or whatever it's called. But then you got your Pedro Carvalhos, Brad Katonas, the other names like that. Nobody really seems to be putting it together. When your best students are, Richie Smolens over in RFP in Ukraine now, so that's weird. And other guys like James Gallagher abandoned ship entirely. I think it's time to look at SBG Ireland as a camp that had success because of the skill of its fighters coming into the camp. And I think that is a different issue just in terms of the past couple of years. And it's hard to look at these camps like Jackson Wink. Remember, Jackson Wink had that really long stretch of failed endeavors for a long time, something along the lines of like 4-20 or something ludicrous, where the Jackson Wink fighters struggled. This is a really rough patch for SBG Ireland, and when you see Johnny Walker's performance deteriorate in front of your very eyes, based on their teachings, it just makes you wonder. And that kind of makes me struggle to call SBG Ireland an elite camp like we would have said before.
Is Sinead Kavanagh, SBG Ireland, like the main campus's like best fighter over the past year and a half or 2 years?
Or Charlie Ward.
Yeah.
Because he's actually been doing, or there's that dude, Black Mamba, Franz Lambo from South Africa, who has been in Kambach, but it's Kambach.
I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it as plainly as I said it on Twitter the other day. Like, I mean, it's time for us to start having the SBG Ireland conversation like around Glendale Fight Club, like which this is the modern day Glendale Fight Club. Um, when you look at Jackson Wink, the slump that they went under, you still had quite a pedigree under them. You still had multiple champions in multiple organizations coming out of that place. You still had high level contenders. Granted, I think they set their bar so high that it was hard to maintain it, but they still were able to set a bar that high. SBG Ireland, much like Glendale Fight Club, their name came solely from one fighter that skyrocketed to the top. One fighter, and one fighter that realistically probably would have kept their winning ways going had they picked up and moved somewhere else at a certain point. I to the point where even they failed their top star. You know, we can think about Edmund Tarverdian pumping into Ronda Rousey's head how incredible of a boxer she was. We can also think back to when Conor lost to Dustin Poirier in their second fight, how the narrative then became, well, we didn't train for an MMA fight, we trained for a boxing match. Just stupid stuff like that. That's just not going to get you anywhere in MMA, not training for an MMA fight. So when you have that level of intelligence running your camp and you're dealing with a fighter who doesn't necessarily show the best fight IQ, who hasn't necessarily had the most control or poise in general, this is the end result. I know you agree, right? I think
Elias like it.
Yeah.
Elias like,
SBG
I got
Ireland's
better
a joke.
footwork than Johnny Walker.
She really does. She really does. Like, SBG Ireland is a terrible camp from all appearances, a terrible camp. And maybe on this, I should say, on the scale of UFC level camps, SBG Ireland's got to be very, very, very low on that list in my opinion. Oh, all right. So let's keep things pushing.
I mean, you can't actually drop the mic because it's on the little boom, but that was basically a mic drop.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't drop my daughter.
Can't drop the other one. Yeah.
All right, fellas. So we had Bellator 274 take place as well. The first time, as we highlighted last week, very briefly, the first time that there was a 5-round fight in the main event, neither in a tournament or for the title. Logan Storley, Neiman Gracie fought their way to a decision. Logan Storley got his hand raised when it was all said and done. What did you think of the fight itself? I mean, it looked like Storley just and Gracie just agreed to do what grapplers do, and that's strike. So how, in your opinion, how did this what gave that victory to Storley?
I mean, I don't think it was too bad a game plan on Storley's part. You know, Storley's boxing has come along really well, just having been basically a primary training partner for Robbie Lawler, and before that Michael Chandler, for like 4 or 5 years now at Sanford MMA. Like, he's a good striker, and I'm sure in the back of his mind was the Yaroslav Amosov fight, where he's taking on a bigger, physically strong welterweight, and he clearly wore himself out trying to take him down. Like, you know, he had a real hard time getting Amosov down, just because Amosov himself is a very good wrestler and bigger. And while Storley won the 3rd round of the Amosov fight, like, he really emptied his tank. That's as tired as I've ever seen him in a fight. And I think he went for the floor is lava approach here, just based on that and based on having seen Gracie's fight against Ed Ruth, and was like, you know what? If you can beat me on the feet, great. But I'm going to take my chances there, because I think I have 5 rounds worth of cardio, and I think I'm a better striker than you. And it worked out. I didn't agree with the scorecard that gave him all 5 rounds, but I thought he won 4. And it was pretty tepid for the first 3 rounds, but the 4th and 5th rounds were really good. That was a lot of fun.
Bellator got lucky. I'll say that.
Oh yeah.
If this were the 3-round main event, it would have been the worst one, because it would have been. I mean, it's just saying, assuming that we could truncate at the end of the 3rd round, and that was the end of the fight, and not they planned it differently to prepare for a 3-round fight instead of a 5-round fight. But it was just a slow, methodical, fairly. I can't say one-sided, but it was one-sided enough. Where I thought there's no point that Gracie's going to be able to really get an upper hand, because he doesn't seem to hit hard enough, and Storley is just elusive enough, and the cardio isn't failing either. So it's kind of like we make the joke about like a lower weight class fight. It's just a kickboxing match where nobody can hurt each other, and so we're like, oh, we're just gonna play out until whatever happens. And then the 4th round happened, and everybody got hurt. I got hurt. Michael T. Williams got hurt. Like, it was just that was that round. We're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Like, what sparked both of them to suddenly turn it on in round 4 is beyond me. But they both had the ability to, and that was very impressive to me, to see them going into the championship rounds and going, hey, Bellator, we got this. Because otherwise this was a cruising to be a bummer. I mean, Bellator's gotten really lucky with headliners recently.
Bellator, their matchmaking and their whole card construction, it's like playing darts with the lights off. Like they hit the bullseye sometimes, but they don't deserve to.
Like the Sergio Pettis fight, the Pettis Horiguchi was a bummer. Was just I think I even said to the rest of the Sherdog staff, oh man, I can almost turn this off now, and I know what's going to happen at the end of like the second or 3rd round. I'm like, Pettis is not going to be able to land on him, and they got lucky because Horiguchi got lamped. And this is a situation where I liked the matchmaking. I genuinely liked this fight. I didn't see it playing out like this, but at the same time, I saw it playing out exactly like this. When I wrote this fight up, I showed it to Ben, that it's a distinct possibility this will turn into the grappling shops will nullify one another and will be treated to 5 rounds of subpar kickboxing. I mean, it kind of happened. I did want to see them on the ground more, just to see if we would have the Ed Ruth effect, like if Storley would take him down. Because my expectation is Storley has pretty darn solid fight IQ. I mean, he won the Amasal fight in one of the judges' eyes, and just by effective grappling. And I wanted to see if he could get down there, get in the ground, open up just enough with ground and pound, but not put himself at risk or leave his arm on the mat and get arm, one of those, kind of not amateurish, but you get tired and make the mistakes things. I wanted to see that play out, but I didn't. I don't want to see him fight Amasov yet again, because I don't see there'd be any difference. I think that it would, play out the same, except for over 5 rounds instead of 3, be very close. Like this, it could be the kind of fight where they fight 12 times and it's 8-4 because of their grappling is just so good that Storley can edge him, but not. But I mean, it worked out. Like this is Bellator 274. Hey, you got one, and that's all right.
Yeah, it kind of played out like the best case scenario when you have the wrestling versus jiu-jitsu thing, which I found very interesting that was highlighted so much in the promo package.
That 10-minute thing, that 10-minute video about
wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, and it's like,
and
what an outdated way of thinking. And it was
Damian Maia versus Ben Askren style.
Yeah, but unlike Damian Maia versus Ben Askren, it was bad kickboxing that was pretty good. Because sometimes like striking that isn't necessarily the crispest on technique or the sharpest or whatever can be fun to watch. Sure. And not in a hilarious, ironic way like Askren and Maia. Like it was genuinely entertaining. And it was weird because it was like the way their grappling nullified each other. It seemed more to be, I know, baby. It seemed more like not necessarily that each person was unable to get an advantage over the other, but that they had thought it through and was like, no, I don't think I even want to explore that. Like, why bother? Like for Neiman Gracie, like you're jiu-jitsu specialist, jiu-jitsu players, and Neiman Gracie isn't known to be like an amazing takedown artist. So are you going to take down a wrestler like Logan Storley? Highly unlikely. very highly unlikely. Now for Storley, you could take Gracie down, but if you gas yourself out like you did against Ed Ruth in the process, then you find yourself on the ground with someone as patient and slick with the submissions as Neiman Gracie. Is that a good idea? No, not really. So the path of least resistance for both of them was to have this striking battle. And Storley with the edge on power, and probably I'm sure his reps in the training room with Lawler and Chandler had played a lot to do with this. If you're standing in front of Chandler and Robbie Lawler on a regular basis
And
as
Gilbert
their main
Burns.
sparring partner,
Yeah.
these are the guys you're training with every day at Sanford. I seriously doubt that Neiman Gracie's boxing is going to deter you. Like, that's going to be like, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want that smoke. Like, it seems like it'd be the exact opposite. And yeah, Storley had I mean, both of them had decent game plans, but for Storley, obviously worked out a lot better. So good win for him.
I mean, I think of the guys at Sanford MMA that you just mentioned. They go hard in sparring. Like, I mean, Robbie Lawler had that little stretch of time where he said, I'm not sparring anymore. But that's because before then, he went full on 110% style. Well,
Storley, I mean, he's the last living survivor of like the, Tuesday nights at Militich.
Yes, that's exactly. He was we're going to beat each other until we all throw up at the end of the night. Yeah, and that's how he, iron sharpens iron and all those different things.
Yeah.
There was something interesting I noticed. Whenever Storley landed like kind of that up jab that he would sneak in there every now and then, Gracie would always go and do like this to check his nose, or he wouldn't quite wipe it, but it was kind of to check. I don't know if it was a reset kind of thing, but it was very telling after about the 45th time he did it.
Yeah, they didn't say like his. I mean, I don't remember his nose like
I don't think so.
gushing with blood, and I don't remember his nose getting broken. So
I mean, some guys do that. Some guys do the thumb to square up again, but it seemed like it was always the left hand that landed. He would reset and do that.
And yeah, I kept expecting it either to be like obviously out of whack, like Arlovski'd, or to start bleeding, but it didn't really start bleeding until the fourth round where everything started bleeding. So yeah, I think he felt like his nose was getting hurt when Storley touched him, and with a couple of individually as hard to score rounds as they were, he's basically kind of selling his opponent's offense there.
That's right. It did. It was the reaction that judges look for. He hurt him kind of thing, and not like a Joe Rogan, he hurt him, but like, it's getting to him.
He texted the commentary team and had them in a frenzy.
If Rogan started texting the Bellator commentary booth,
all right,
I would be so happy. That'd be amazing.
That'd be pretty great.
All right, fellas. So let's move on here. I know you guys got a couple things you had in mind for House Taste My Crow. So break out your seasonings, and it's time to take a bite. Jay, I'll start with you. House Taste My Crow this week.
Well, we're going way south of the border, and I touched on this beforehand, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that my flyer for Johnny Walker didn't have a ton of confidence, but I saw a very distinct path to victory, or so I thought, given what Jamahal Hill experienced with Klidson Abreu. I thought that there would be the chance that Walker could do that thing he does. And I guess I think at this stage, I shouldn't, and this goes for overall picking, I shouldn't pick on if someone shows up, because that is such a trap. If you're going to say, well, the real, I don't know, the crazy Abdul Razak Al Hassan that charges mindlessly, if that one shows up, it's different than the one that suddenly goes and hits 3 takedowns in the third round, because what? And I had Johnny Walker just that the last gasp I expected, and I didn't get that at all. In fact, what we got was such a dramatic knockout that even though I only partially supported Walker, I supported him enough to where that result was so extreme that I'll eat the crow that has the various appropriate spices on it from Brazil, and a little bit of salt in there too, because that's about all there is in the UK that they put on there. There's not much seasoning in the UK. There's not much.
Well, you can throw like beans and gravy on top of it, right? Don't they do that with everything else?
Well, a bangers and mash for a short banger. I'm okay with that.
All right. All right, Ben, how's Taste My Crow this week?
Well, I mean, I'll have some Australian crow, I guess. So it's crow that has like a weird duck bill and like poisonous spines in its paws, and like, but
Or
it's also by
you can
way
just
of,
order from Outback.
yeah, but it's by way of Las Vegas. So it's like crow from like the $7.99 steak buffet at at Circus. But coming into this card, I picked Jessica Rose Clark to beat Stephanie Egger because Clark had been on a recent run of showing good fight IQ, or coming up with good game plans and sticking to them. Like against Sarah Alpar, someone that she knew needed to take her down. She managed distance beautifully and just beat the living crap out of her for one of the worst beatdowns of that year.
And ruined her wedding.
Ruined her wedding photos. Like,
Yeah,
having spoken to Sarah Alpar a couple times, I'm sure she still loves those photos because
Fair.
Sarah Alpar is just awesome. But definitely very, very interesting wedding photos those would have been. But then against Jocelyn Edwards, a rangy, hard-hitting kickboxer that prefers to fight all the way out, she did a great job of just crowding her, took her down about a million times. Just she had been following her best path to victory in her recent fights. And so against Stephanie Egger, where it's like she is one of the few true judo specialists like left at the highest levels of the sport. You know exactly what she needs to do. She needs to clinch with you to get you down. I figured, okay, she'll manage distance. She'll stay in that kind of mid to out range, and it might not be the prettiest thing, but she's going to win a decision pretty easily here. And instead, 5 seconds into the fight, runs right across and clinches with Egger. Egger like dumps her on her ass twice. Second time she didn't get back up because Egger isolated the arm as soon as they were down, and this thing was over. Like, I don't know if the best version of Jessica Rose Clark would have beaten Stephanie Egger, but I picked it to happen. But instead, like, she handed the fight to her on a plate just as neatly as you possibly could.
Definitely.
That head and arm Katakatame though, man.
Yeah.
That was Ben's favorite throw move.
I like it just fine when judokas do it. They're not giving up their whole back and just sort of like falling to the ground.
Yeah.
Like there's actually some amplitude there. Because like dumping someone to the ground where it knocks their breath out of them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's how you are in position to like move to mount, get a 2-on-1, and you're already moving, to a dominant position or a submission while they're still like wondering what the hell happened.
That's all that Montserrat Ruiz knows how to do. And she could do it well sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need, but you got to do it right. Like that's that's such a risky thing if you don't do it correctly. So yeah, make sure you get that hip toss down correctly in the training room before you go live in the octagon. All right, my crow, I don't really have a whole lot of crow but I'll take a light dosage only because while I did pick Andrey Koreshkov to beat Chance Rincontri, sometimes you just forget how good Koreshkov is. Sometimes we just forget, and he reminded us all, especially Chance's ribs, who he was. What an amazing spinning back kick to, I think he broke 5 ribs, punctured a lung, sent the man on the floor agonizing in pain. Like, what a spectacular kick by Koreshkov, and another reminder of how nice he really is. Like, this man has let me double check, make sure I got this right here, but Koreshkov has only lost to Douglas Lima, Ben Askren, and Lorenz Larkin in Bellator. And trying his loss before that. It was 2 losses to Ben Askren, 2 to Lima, and then Lorenz Larkin. All 3 excellent names with deep pedigrees. So Koreshkov, man, just that's a nasty dude right there. All right, so let's keep things pushing here. We're going to move things on to quick hits. We'll have 30 seconds to answer each question. Ben, I think I'll start with you. While we're talking about Mr. Koreshkov, do you think him versus Paul Daley is the next action fight that Bellator needs to make at welterweight?
Well, they already made it, but I disagree. I disagree with it. One, if that is still Daley's retirement fight, why would you do that to a man? Why would you do that?
Because it's the retirement fight.
It's the death fight. Like, why not let him fight like Michael Venom Page or something?
I get Yeah, well, Koreshkov to fight Venom Page?
Yeah, Koreshkov.
Oh, okay,
Like,
okay. I thought you were
Daley's
talking
already
about
fought
Daley.
Page, and
Like,
it was
oh,
terrible.
yeah, like,
No,
oh,
Daley versus Page was like they already fought. It was terrible. Like D1 Daley. Like, ugh.
yeah.
No,
we're
like,
good.
yeah, like they made it. I don't like it. And if it's all action, it will not be to Paul Daley's benefit.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
very true.
Hard to disagree with that. All right, now
let me ask you a question, Ant.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
take
sure.
this one. You know, we've talked about this several times, and I couldn't help but talk about it as my side of the week. Jim expletive Miller, Jim all of the things Miller. I mean, what can you say about him getting another knockout? Dude's 38. How does that make you feel? And I mean, yeah, how does Jim Miller getting a knockout make you feel?
How do you not love Jim Miller still knocking dudes out, and especially a guy he was a betting underdog against that was making his UFC debut? So it's very clear the UFC wanted to get this new guy over, and Jim Miller was the stepping stone. No, not what's going to happen, fam. Jim Miller is probably the toughest person that's ever stepped foot in the UFC this side of Roy Nelson. Like I am amazed at what he is still able to accomplish. So it just makes me feel great to see him win.
It's the old guy recovery club, man.
Yeah, man.
He and Arlovsky have that CRT chin replacement therapy treatment going.
Man, he
nuts, ate
man.
that shot and didn't go down.
Oh, just ate it like it was breakfast, man.
That was a shot that 3 years ago would have put him out.
And even just from a technique standpoint, just the leg kicks, like the way he was timing those leg kicks and literally kicking his base away when your man tried to step forward with the punches was just fantastic work.
Sweep the leg, bro. Sweep the leg. He's from watching Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah. So, Jay, I've got one for you. So, Mike Perry, Julian Lane, they had 5 bloody rounds at BKFC. So just very simple question, man. Were you entertained and why?
This fight was exactly what it needed to be, and it is exactly what is expected to be. Like, you build this fight between these two knucklehead brawlers, and you don't get a knockout. You get basically they're going to run at each other until one of them gets a little more tired than the other. The other one makes a comeback. It's dramatic. It's exciting. It makes you want to see a rematch. It's a good bare knuckle fight, and you go, yeah, I can see that they will both flourish in BK because that's what happens.
You're saying that they're going to probably let them bang again?
They will bang. I will make a prediction in a minute or two about that.
I mean, for all we know, they rematched in the parking lot of the Waffle House an hour later. But
oh man, yeah, take that $500 bonus and get yourself a few omelets.
Heck yeah. Get yourself extra toppings, extra bananas on top.
Extra whipped cream on the on the strawberries and whipped cream pancakes. All right, now, Jay, I might as well keep the ball in your court for the best title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. It's where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. So, Mr. Pettry, go ahead and tell me what your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment is this week.
So BKFC Knucklemania happened, and this was weird because the UFC was on at 4 p.m. Eastern time. UFC was on at 4, Bellator was on at 6, and BKFC was like 7:30, and then kind of floated on at 8 and 9 and whenever it happened. So they all kind of programmed each other, and it was a weird mess of what do you watch right now? So I ended up watching BKFC because I knew I had finished the UFC play-by-play, and it was a tiring one, even though it was shorter than usual. And I needed some mindless violence to not have to worry about covering, because sometimes that's really, really important. Like, I can just watch the fights and I don't have to worry about writing something up about them or checking the data. And Mike Perry and Julian Lane delivered that exactly what they promised it would be. They were both bloody. They were both beat up. There was a knockdown, but nothing too crazy. So good on BKFC for matchmaking that fight, because they knew what they were going to get and they got it. However, BKFC can't seem to match all of their fights appropriately and make it so that some of them aren't dangerous or problematic, because as we remember, Justin Thornton died from his injuries from a BKFC fight in Montana like a couple months ago, and people seem to have forgotten because BKFC never stopped holding events. had a very kind of weak statement about it and just kept on keeping on. Well, at Knucklemania 2, they decided, okay, we have a hotshot signee. We're going to let him move up to the division he should have fought at, and we're probably not going to drug test him at all. See also 150 pounds, 155.8 pound Chad Mendes, who looked like he was carved out of stone, absolutely ripped, and you know how hard this dude can hit. He is one of the classic cases of wrestlers getting strikeritis. I'm going to rely on my big right hand, and you're going to fall down, or you're going to hurt me, and I'm going to be in trouble. You know, we've seen it. We saw it play out multiple times, besides the Cody McKenzie thing. And they matched Chad Mendes against a guy named Fames. Fames. If you don't know who he is, I didn't either. And I had watched
Fames with a Z.
With a Z. I had watched a BK event where he fought some guy with blue hair and beat him or whatever. It was some other nothing guy. So they're matching a former UFC title challenger, multiple time title challenger, with bricks for fists. I can't say for certain because I didn't see the results, because there will never be the results. But there was probably a supplement or two in Chad Mendes if you look at how ridiculously massive he was. And he did exactly what you expect to a 1-on-1 BK hip hop artist that's a goofball that has tassels that are almost down to his shoes so they can kind of trip you up. Like, this is the matchmaking that gets people killed. I'm funny until I get serious, because this is the match. Because what would this hip hop goofball have to offer at all?
More bad music.
Yes, maybe, but this is Chad Mendes. This is Chad Mendes, who dropped him 4 or 5 times before the inevitable 4th round stoppage that only went to the 4th round because Chad Mendes willed it to, he let him do this, and because he probably broke his hand pretty badly. I mean, this Fames guy didn't win a minute of the fight. Like, I don't think he won 30 seconds. I don't know if he won an exchange. There was nothing competitive about this. And this isn't a guy out of his prime. Chad Mendes is what, 35, 36? Huge. I can't stress how massive this guy was. And he didn't just walk around all, yoked for bear. And no, this guy threw hammers, and he connected and smashed this guy up. And the 4th or 5th knockdown, they may or may not have counted them all. The guy's like on his hands and knees, like halfway to death. And they're just, they finally call a fight. But you got Perry Lane, 2 goofballs out, they're out there doing their things. They're going to brawl it out. And then you have the mismatch of an elite guy who would, if he fought in the UFC right now, he'd be top 5. Easy. Against Fames. So I had to go along about that, because I just, what obviously they hate Fames, and he owes BK money, because why else would you matchmake something this egregious? Like, it was a worse matchup than Chad Mendes versus Cody McKenzie, an actual UFC fighter who wore tags on his shorts because he didn't have his shorts.
And borrowed a mouth guard.
Just BK, you got to stop. This is it's okay. I'm out.
No, you're speaking a lot of truth there, Jay. All right, Ben, ball's in your court now. What's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I was legitimately surprised by something. I've watched a lot of fights. This is the first time I can remember hearing this. So Jamie Pickett, of course, stepped up on very short notice, very short turnaround to take on Kyle Dawkins. Ended up getting tapped out with an absolute buzzer beater, via Darce choke as the first round expired, to the point where, the ref took a sec to kind of, it took about 15 seconds for him to say, no, okay, yeah, he tapped before the horn sounded. But as soon as he tapped, horn sounded, Dawkins let go, Pickett just sits right up. Like, clearly he wasn't out. It wasn't about to be out. Just he sits up, kind of shakes his head, and starts talking to Dawkins. We find out the next day that the reason he tapped out is because his tongue was caught between his teeth and his mouth guard, and the squeeze was making him about to bite his tongue off. I'm tapping my desk right now just thinking about that shit. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Like I first I heard of somebody tapping out because like a squeeze from a choke was about to like remove their tongue.
You know what? I remember that happening one other time. Jim Miller and Nate Diaz. And I believe that's what Jim Miller said forced him to tap.
Yes. I remember
Um,
that picture of him. I do,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, he was like his tongue was definitely
Yeah,
caught in
yeah.
caught in under his teeth. Man, because I saw, you know, a lot of the tweets, man, that it's like, man, don't tap to a blood choke, especially when you're that close to the end of the round. And you know, that's I definitely know more than a few people. You know, you get in the training room and it's a blood choke. Yeah, you're not going to tap. You'd rather just go out because it's really not that harmful for you long term. But man, yeah, if your tongue is about to get bitten off, yeah, tapping forever on that one. So, I
Hey.
just hope that the UFC doesn't hold that against him.
Oh, geez.
That's
You playing with house money when you step up on short notice like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, we've seen stranger things, but yeah,
yeah.
got a point there. All right, fellas.
Hey.
So, oh yeah, what's up, Jay?
Can I break Proto for a second and take two?
Of
I'm
course.
not surprised segments.
Sure.
Because there was something that happened that I feel like I need to talk about just for a minute or two. So in the prelims to Bellator 274, the undefeated Aviv Gozali, who is the son of Haim Gozali, who is an Israeli star, fought a guy named Bobby King, who is, I believe, his only loss in recent memory is to Alexander Shabliy, so that's nothing disappointing. He beat Nick Newell, he beat Steven Seagal, so, you know, established LFA level, Bellator level talent. And it was Aviv's first real test. And it was the first real opponent that he was going to face that wasn't just going to fall over and tap to a heel hook like nothing. So Aviv tries to do what he does, let his hands go, gets rocked early. First time he's ever been rocked, first time he'd ever really been hit cleanly. Doesn't handle it well, doesn't recover well, gets just bludgeoned for the first 5-minute period, barely makes it out of the round. Like this is a 10-8, bordering on 10-7 beatdown. First round. Goes to his corner, gets help back, and gets up. Aviv Gozali, 21 years old, trains at I forget where he trains at now, but it's somewhere in the States. Israeli kid, but you know, fully fluent in English and everything like that. So second round's about to start. He's not bleeding, he's not injured, whatever. And referee Kevin McDonald, who has a sweet handlebar mustache now, calls in the doctor to check on his condition to see if he can keep fighting. No blood, no doctor stoppage like that. And he calls and, hey, you're okay, which is very strange that happened. There's a bizarre exchange, and Aviv says he can't speak English. Call in the translator. And Kevin McDonald walks over and says he speaks English. And his corner says he speaks English fluently. So this is all confusing. This is giving Aviv extra time to recover from his beatdown. They bring in Haim Gozali, his father, who to act as a translator, to actually translate after stating this guy is fluent in English. They proceed to allow this to still happen, this charade of absolute nonsense for 3 or 4 minutes before the start of round 2 to happen, just because of his condition. He's kind of rocked. Like this dude, they should have stopped the fight immediately. Like his eyes were looking this way. Like there was no reason for it to go on, but they let him go, and he tried to pull the sneaky somehow move out on no habla and get it all to go on and continue on. And Mike Mazzulli, the Mohegan Sun guy, jumps on the corner of the cage and says, "Hey, you got to call this fight now, or you know we can't keep doing this. You got to do it." So they finally call the fight after minutes of recovery time for Gozali for a doctor stoppage for condition of concussion, which I've never seen that before. It's not, there was no blood you got to stop the cut. Can you see? No. They
Bobby
gave
King
this kid
punched all the English out of a man's skull.
They knocked the English,
punched the whole language out of you.
They punched the highlights out of his hair. Like, I don't know how bizarre this whole thing transpired, and then he got TKO'd.
That's so easy.
Yeah.
Just, oh my gosh, I had to say something because just
sleazy.
Ludicrous.
He gamed the system out of a standing 8 count,
and he almost got away with it. Like, dude, like seriously, I'm not exaggerating.
You measly kids, yeah.
He had several extra minutes to recover, and they almost continue the fight. So yeah. Anyway,
That's hilarious.
let's carry on. Back to our regularly scheduled nonsense.
All right. Well, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment. Um, it prompted me to reach out to you guys to try to do like some reaction video when the news was announced. But we just timing wise, it didn't work out. But man, Dale Brown, who, if you're not familiar with him, you've probably seen him on social media. His training center was like called, I think the acronym is DUST. I forget what, Detroit Urban Survival Training. It's like a self-defense oriented school. And this guy has the most garbage videos showing quote unquote technique. And, you know, the sport of mixed martial arts, and I say sport, you know, as a loose term, has invited its fair share of goofballs and charlatans and just complete weirdos into the fold. I mean, we think back to Steven Seagal, think back to not far back to Joshua Fabia or Fabian or whatever. Is that his? Because I keep wanting to call him Johnny Tapia. I keep wanting to call him that. But we've had our fair amount of fools attach themselves to the sport. Dale Brown being the latest, and surprisingly, like he actually was in a winning camp. This time he actually cornered the winning fighter as Joaquin Buckley got the decision over Abdul Razak. So I'm surprised and not surprised because one, I'm surprised. I was surprised to see Dale Brown in the UFC. Like I was surprised to see him standing in the cage and he's attached himself to a legitimate fighter. But I also wasn't surprised because he has kind of gone on this press run since his place has gone viral. Like he's been on different podcasts, like hip hop related shows. He's kind of made the rounds media wise. So it only made sense that he would attach himself to a fighter and make the case that he deserves this spotlight in that way. But also I'm not surprised too that Buckley did set the record straight after the fight that Dale Brown was not there to actually coach him. He just stated very clearly like, hey, this guy helped me promote the fight. So.
Well, and you make a good point there, because up until that point, I wasn't sure how seriously Buckley was taking him. I mean, you mentioned Steven Seagal. When Seagal was hanging around with Machida and Silva, they were clearly having fun. They're like, we get to hang out with the movie guy, and he gets to feel important walking around in like his caftan and beads and shit, and like say that he taught us this front kick. But they were having fun with it. Mm-hmm. You know, like I couldn't tell because I watched when he announced it, and it was with Angela Hill, and who is the woman that does
Karen Bryant?
Yeah, thank you, Karen Bryant and Angela Hill. And there, I couldn't tell how seriously he was taking it. I'm like, dude, if you made this dude your actual sensei, I need to flip my pick on this fight quickly and decisively.
Yeah. I just found it so hilarious because I mean, partly because of my background. So as we know on the show, like part of my background is in Krav Maga, a martial art that has been much trashed for some people teaching it very, very incorrectly, and you know, a lot of goofy people attaching themselves to that name. In fact, I'm actually wearing the t-shirt of one of the places I used to teach at, so I just happen to have this on today, so it worked out perfectly. But it's always so funny to see the worlds collide, and to see at least the goofy side of those worlds collide, because you know, there's some of those guys actually have very legitimate backgrounds in traditional martial arts, but they very rarely are like pressure tested in an MMA style format. And when we have seen it happen, you go on YouTube and you can see a ton of videos of these people just getting the ever loving shit beaten out of them to very hilarious results. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Dale Brown again. And although, man, he did look very disappointed when Buckley was talking about he helped promote the fight. Like you could see like the enthusiasm just leave his face in that moment. That was hilarious. That just made me really happy.
He was the last one to find out.
Yeah, he said what?
Well, it's like Seagal. He was the only one not in on the joke. I think that's the same with this guy.
Oh, Dale standing there in like his tactical pants, looking like the fat six with the Barge brother. Yeah.
Yeah, like they actually let him wear the vest though. Like
Yeah.
that's so like the
Like-
UFC was very clearly in on this joke.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
because that's part of who he is, like that vest and all that shit.
They
It's a
probably had to
character.
tell probably had to tell Felder to leave him alone.
Yeah.
Like after we saw what Felder did to like Josh Fabia,
Oh,
like,
Oh,
like
man.
Felder, we know he's a joke. Just don't go at him with a fake gun or anything.
Yeah. Like I'm gonna have to go back and watch and watch it, but I don't recall seeing him wearing like the Fight Kit shirt that the coaches wear. I thought he just had like the vest on. Did he? Or is that just my mind picturing?
I mean, I'm
Dale Brown.
remembering a vest with like a bandolier of Twinkies across it or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at an image real quick. But let's see. Let me see if I can find one real quick here. Dale Brown UFC. Let's see if
See,
if
every
we
time I
got
hear
it.
Dale Brown, I think of that dude that used to coach the Pacers.
Oh, you know what? I tell you what. Okay, he had the UFC hoodie on. He had the Venom hoodie. So that's
yeah, I see the logo now.
yeah. Okay, yeah. So, but they're definitely in on this joke. Like this was hilarious, and we're probably going to see more of this. Dale Brown, at least, I think he understands how silly everything around him is and how goofy a lot of the stuff he does is, because this press run that he's gone on has been very purposeful and very calculated. So I can imagine there will be other fights. Derek Brunson joking on Twitter about wanting to have him in his corner for his retirement fight and stuff. This is the sort of thing that I think will become pretty normal for at least a couple months until we move on to the next goofy guy, until Bagel Boss makes a comeback. So
Oh my God. Don't you wish that evil on us.
yeah, that knee-high level evil. All right.
Hey, he Buckley said he came to promote the fight. This was UFC Fight Night 201. It was a main card opener. Did it help?
I mean, according to social media, it did, with like certain celebrities that are aware of who Dale Brown is and find him funny or entertaining, saying that they're going to tune in. But that to that extent, yeah, I don't think this is going to have a dramatic shift in ratings.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to figure out how it could help an undercard fight, essentially.
The only way I think it helps is having more celebrities to have their tweets on the screen.
Yep.
And if you consider that a win for the UFC, and so be it.
And I mean, I'm sure all the media that were on the ground covering Fight Week were glad to have something else to ask about or take pictures of. Just otherwise, all this shit just runs together so bad. And you know what? Yeah, he won, and he won kind of a surprising the way the fight turned out. But if he had like absolutely lamped Al Hassan or been knocked out, I think Brown would have been much more memeified. Like, like get this man in your corner or get this man out of your corner.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This was almost the worst possible outcome as far as Brown's visibility, because
it's a fight you never want to watch again.
Yeah, it's a fight you never want to watch again. And Al Hassan like shot 3 takedowns on him in the 3rd round, like lived up to his Judo Thunder nickname for the first time in his entire career. But yeah, like if this had been the first round knockout we kind of expected, I think there would have been a lot more kind of shine on Brown being there.
Well, if Buckley continues to have this guy, in his camp, or at least showing up on Fight Week, the chances are that he gets to attach himself to a first round knockout is pretty high. So you can, if you're Dale Brown, hey, just keep riding this wave, and Buckley's probably going to knock somebody else out next time he fights, or the time after that, or the time after that. And you have a legitimate mixed martial artist that you can kind of hit your brand on, whether it's justified or not. So, I mean, he's also one of those guys that's playing with house money, because we're talking about him now.
And know your place, unlike Fabia. Like Fabia got this idea that he really was the Svengali and was, the only one sticking up for Diego, or I mean, really kind of groomed Diego is what it looked like. And that's what made the whole train crash.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone got tired of Fabia really quick, when that happened.
And I almost feel like this is one of those times where the UFC's kind of rigidness about walkouts, about fight kits and everything else, where this is really coming back to bite them, because how much more fun would this have been if Buckley could walk his camp out with all the dust vest on and
Oh
all
man,
those little guns, the fake guns that he has
yes.
in the background on his videos. Like, so many just interesting things that could happen. Like, this would be much better suited for like a Rising New Year's Eve or something. Just where we could just lean into the goofy, and
And
I
then
think
Dale Brown actually fights somebody in the ring.
that actually would be hilarious. Maybe Seagal. He probably would beat Seagal's ass. Seagal is a bloated, disgusting excuse of a human being right now.
He's got good
Granted, he's
wrist
always
blocks,
been
that's
like a
about it.
disgusting human being, but yeah. And maybe Dale could have Gene LaBelle in his corner just to give Seagal that little bit of intimidation, that mental factor, make him. Yeah,
Man,
That's amazing.
all I can see is like a shark in the ocean, and there's just a sucker fish attaching itself to its underbelly. That's all I can see here.
Yeah, but I mean, this is this
That's
sport is, it is what it is. All right, so let's keep things pushing here. PFL Challenger Series had an event this past week. One of the many things that happened since we last met. Jay, I know you wanted to share some thoughts on the Challenger Series. What's on your mind?
Okay. I don't want to go long. I know we're gonna, if I keep blathering about it, but this was an experiment, at least in my eyes, because PFL Challenger Series, for those who didn't see it and don't want to see it, good, you come to the right place. It is a ripoff of Dana White's Contender Series plus reality show elements of like American Idol thrown in there, with active judges sitting not ringside, but in the building talking.
Jeremy Piven on his couch,
or Jeremy Piven on his couch on Skype, smoking a cigar and some other substances, because you can clearly see he gets intoxicated midway through the broadcast. 4 fights, PFL pacing, led to approximately 2 hours and 51 minutes, I believe, was the show, the whole length of the show. Essentially, just about 2 hours of non-fight time on the broadcast, if you're keeping score. 4 fights, 2 extra hours of nonsense. After every fight, they get the judges, which are the judges are going to rotate. This past week, there were Ray Lewis, because he knows stuff about aggression, I guess. Tyron Woodley, because Tyron Woodley's great, and Jeremy Piven, who played an executive on television. Maybe it's kind of a slight to Ari Emanuel in the UFC. I don't know, but it was, how do I say it? Utter nonsense, a waste of time, just long, bloated, everybody bloviated. They cut back and forth. Every fight that would happen after the fight, there would be a full recap of what we just saw 2 minutes ago. And my pace and my wording is slow and deliberate, because that was what this stupid broadcast was. This is supposed to be sleek. It's supposed to be sexy, fast. You got the action. You got the fighters. You got them on stage. But no, we literally had the 4 winners of the event get in the cage at the end, joined by Ray Sefo, the head of PFL, joined by Ray Lewis and Tyron Woodley. And I don't know, maybe they had some lady holding a laptop open to have Jeremy Piven. I don't know how that worked out, because he was not in the building. He was in LA, and they're over in Orlando. They had the 4 winners. They said, okay, we're going to eliminate 2 of you. And they said, okay, you 2 step forward. And you're thinking, okay, they're going to go on. And they cut them and they kicked them out of the cage, and had the other 2 people standing in the cage going, oh, I guess we're safe here. We're safe from elimination. And then proceeded to declare a fan vote, where I don't know how the process actually works. You go online, you do it on Twitter. I don't know. They weren't very specific. And they cut to commercial. This was a 5-minute fighters standing in the cage, the 2 finalists in the cage to get 1 contract, waiting to hear what's going to happen. And then they cut the commercials. So that means they're just literally standing there going, well, now what do we do? One of them doesn't speak English very fluently, if at all, in Bruce Soto, and he was the one that got the contract. Spoiler alert. PFL doesn't respect the time and attention of his audience. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. They do not care about who is watching it, as long as people are watching it. And this is a death knell for an organization that wants people to watch their show. Because you know what? I cover the sport for a living. This is a full-time thing that I do every week. You know, I will not be doing on this coming Friday. I will not be watching PFL Challenger Series 2. We'll do it. Please, guys. What do you think about the show?
At the end of all that, and everything you said is right. Like, the pacing was just absolutely agonizing. It just sucked all the fun out of it. It took away all the things that are great about Contender Series, because Contender Series, they're banging them through fast. Yeah, they'll give you a little like reel to just kind of make you care about them. Like, I fight for my daughter, as if the other fighter like hates his kids. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, it's bang, 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 and you get like 5 or 6 fights in 2 hours, and it's a lot of fun. This just sucked all of that out. And at the end, just they managed to even like trip and over their own dick at the finish line, because how do you not put Conan Silvera's kid through? Like, that was the only thing you needed to get out of this, was to get like the crown prince of American Top Team into your actual roster. I'm sure they're going to find some way to backdoor him in, because otherwise, what the fuck was this all for?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that I'm surprised that the world of mixed martial arts hasn't realized yet is that typically, if you have content surrounding it that isn't just centered around fights, it's going to be pretty bad. Like, we've seen this after the first few seasons of Tough, and it was like, okay, this is the same thing over and over again with just some fresh faces. Like, people stopped watching Tough like 15 years ago. And since then, it seems like everyone has tried to create their own version of Tough. I mean, that Bellator show, was it Fight Master? Thing was
Shout out Joe Riggs.
That was god awful show. They had that one on BET where, like, I can't remember
Iron Rank.
Yeah, that's right. And Jules Santana was like trying to lecture.
It's still the best
Jamie
thing Campbell
Yeager or
McLaren's
something.
ever done. Campbell McLaren gave us, and for that he can be forgiven all the other like bullshit.
Well,
But, like,
Campbell can do no wrong, but
Jules Santana and Crazy Horse like yelling at a Bongo Humphrey is like just
like,
must
yo,
watch
this is-
television.
I mean, but it's like, it's just silly. It's like just downright silly. Like, just give us fights. And what makes the Contender Series a good show is that it's just fights. It's just a bite-sized helping of fights, and you can move on with your life. Like, if we are not tripping over ourselves to watch the actual PFL, if we are not tripping over ourselves to go when they were talking about doing pay-per-view events, if we weren't whipping out our credit cards for that, what makes you think in the middle of the week we're going to sit down for 5-6 hours and watch, PFL fighters or potential PFL fighters, people who aren't even in PFL, stand on the stage and get judged like American Idol? Like, where's the market for this?
The market is for people that want to see nonsense happen, and not just because the guy that got deducted a point for fish hooking, because this was the guy that, by the way, his last fight before this one, he was disqualified for fish hooking. So that happened too. I'm the target market. I pay attention to betting odds. I pay attention to this information. I want to know. I don't need betting segments at the end and the beginning of every fight. I don't need the reaction of the betting guy going, yes, or no, I didn't get it. Because there should be a conflict of interest if you're establishing the odds and also betting on them. I think there's a conflict of interest there, but I don't want to talk about that too much. It's just cut, hack and slash. I whined for a little while at the end of Contender Series of this last season because it felt like the pace was slowing, and it was, but not to the degree like this. There were 4 fights. It was 2 hours and 45 plus minutes. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
All right. Well, let's keep things pushing here. We're nearing our time limit. So Bellator is returning to Dublin on Friday. Bellator 275. Gegard Mousasi defending his belt against Austin Vanderford. Besides that main event, anything in particular that you're looking forward to, fellas?
It lost the fight I wanted to see the most. Peter Queally bounced back. The Peter Queally Kane Musa, it just sounded like a fun banger of a fight, and that's gone. It's off the table. I think Queally got injured, and for him to have to pull out of a Dublin fight on fight week, that tells me it was a pretty serious injury. So I kind of feel sad about that. Otherwise, I don't know. What are you going to have? Hassan Magomedsharipov? I guess. Duffy, bring me up.
I mean, anytime Davey Gallen fights from now on, I'm at least going to check and see if he hit a rolling thunder kick. But Brett Johns, like, he left the UFC on 2 wins. I mean, I think his UFC record was something like 5-2 or something. His only losses in the UFC were to Aljamain Sterling and Pedro Munoz.
Correct.
Like, top 5 guys. and he left beating two good prospects in Tony Gravely and Montel Jackson. Like, there's a possibility that Brett Johns should be like somewhere between the 5th and 8th ranked bantamweight in the division right now. But, you know, he went over to Bellator. He lost his debut. Now he's taking on an undefeated prospect who this is going to be an enormous step up in competition for him. You know, when you get a guy from a former Soviet republic that's like 8-0, 10-0, you never know whether you're getting the next Shavkat Rachmanov or you're just getting, you know, a guy that's in over his head. This guy's going to be in over his head, I think. So I'm looking for Brett Johns, still just 30 years old, to keep doing good things in the bantamweight division.
Yeah, the one thing, I mean, besides, you know, we were talking about SBG Ireland, Sinead Kavanaugh fighting in the co-main event, so maybe she can redeem the name of the school for, you know, for the time being. But
Well, and it's SBG versus SBG, because all Leah McCord did was go to another.
Oh yeah, so
yeah,
well,
she's in like Charlestown or one of those others. Yeah.
Well, at least SBG wins, so they'll be in the win/loss column if that's the case.
Is Charlestown Owen Roddy's location?
Yes, I believe so.
Interesting.
I mean,
all right,
things kind of went downhill when Roddy left.
I'm saying.
But here's the thing about that fight: they're killing. If Kavanaugh wins, they've just killed a contender.
Yep.
So
yeah. I mean, other than that, it was the Fabian Edwards fight, which was what I believe was canceled in favor of matching him up with Lyoto Machida.
What an upgrade from Marion Dimitrov to Lyoto Machida.
Yeah, like wow, that is a serious step up there. So that would have been interesting, just seeing Fabian Edwards in general, but we'll have to wait at a later date against a much higher higher profile opponent. All right, gentlemen. So, of course, the UFC is going to be in action. We're in the second or third week of was it 8-week stretch? I think until we.
I can't keep track of it anymore. I'm losing it.
Well, I know we're going to have a lot of talk about the main event next week. Bobby Green stepping up in place of RDA against Islam Makhachev.
Dariush. RDA was Fiziev.
Fiziev. Sorry. Yeah. So how about this, fellas? Let's just give our picks on this fight. What do we think happens in this main event?
Can I ask you guys a question to jump into your picks?
Sure.
Can you remember a time where Bobby Green has been thoroughly out wrestled?
No.
I can't either. I believe it happened once a long time ago, but I can't remember that. That's the one. If you're going to beat Bobby Green, you're going to beat him because Bobby Green beats Bobby Green because he doesn't do enough to lose and he loses the fight. I can't think of a time where he gets out wrestled and is on his back going,
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a look at why do I feel like he won that fight. Never mind. Wow. I'm just trying to think of
the Lando draw, but that was, you know, he also got dropped and it was a great fight. It was a fight of the night.
And yeah, and the two best wrestlers that I can definitely remember him fighting. I didn't remember the results, but now looking at him, like, he won those fights. Yeah. Pat Healy and Jacob Volkman, he choked out. So Bobby Green, yeah,
he beat Clay Guida soundly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this guy can give Makhachev lots of problems. Makhachev seems to be one of those guys where, you know, he's gonna rush in and try to get you to the floor regardless, but he's got to rush in, and he doesn't have the cleanest striking. He's like like I've said before, he's a lower level Khabib. We've seen Khabib take shots on the way in. We saw what Michael Johnson did in his brief flashes of brilliance against Khabib. I think we have the potential to see something like that, only much worse. That Bobby Green might just. This is the perfect scenario to come in and fight a Makhachev because you know exactly what you're going to get and you know exactly what you're going to offer. You're talking about a guy who, at least we can't recall being out wrestled. A guy who has dialed it in lately. Like, we know he's in shape. He just got off of a damn good fight, damn good performance on his part, and has, like, I think the proper striking style to give Makhachev some issues, man. This is not a guy. Green is not going to swing for the fences and throw everything in and overexpose himself and overextend on the punch. This is a guy who's going to be dialed back, who's going to pick his shots, and he's going to land with a lot of volume. It's going to be overwhelming. It's very difficult to get to shoot in on someone who's just constantly throwing stuff and moving as they do it. Are we feeling an upset here?
I'm not, much as I'd like to. I mean, just a week ago on the show, we were talking about Green coming off, his second straight fantastic performance, and I kind of said he's primed for a Jorge Masvidal type breakout. Just in terms of breaking into a higher echelon in the division and becoming a much bigger star than he is. And that was before this fight was made. And this is a perfect setup for that, because obviously if he wins and just pulls off this massive upset over a guy that'll probably be like a minus 600 favorite by the time they walk into the cage, he's our breakthrough fighter of the year. Oh, it's above that. But he could even lose. Like, if he gives Makhachev the fight of his life and like loses a split decision or something, he might still be my breakthrough fighter of the year. Like, unless he just gets taken down, trucked, and tapped out in like 2 minutes, this is all upside for Green. But I do think he's going to get out wrestled. Makhachev is a guy where it almost doesn't matter how good the other guy's wrestling is. Like, I as much as I think Green can threaten them, I think as the fight goes on, Makhachev is going to start, if not right away, if not in the first round, he's going to start getting the takedowns. And while Green can certainly frustrate him, can hurt him, he's not typically a one-shot knockout guy. Like, Makhachev could take a couple shots on the way in, and as long as he can get on the man's hips, I think we will see Green go down, even if he hasn't been soundly out wrestled yet. Again, against Makhachev, I don't think that matters so much.
What do you think, Jay?
It all comes down to this.
Well, I'm tempted.
One of the picks. Right now, on Monday, Islam Makhachev is minus 750. That number has been shifting pretty high. I believe he opened at like 450, and he spiked down to minus 1,000. So it's really coming back around. So at 525, 550, give or take, plus the plus money for Bobby Green, if we're going to go strictly betting odds, I have to go for a flyer for Bobby Green. I think his sprawl and brawl type of style. I mean, like, he's evolved as a technical striker, volume striker to a massive degree recently, more than he was before. But he's still that old strike for a sprawl and brawler. Like, that's just always been the Bobby Green I know. Like, he hasn't been tapped out since it was like Tachi Palace fights way back in the day. And it was like David Mitchell or something hit him in a toe hold. So this is Bobby Green, who has fought some of the best grapplers in the world, hasn't succumbed to anything, and he's been threatened along the way, even threatened some other guys with some issues too. So I don't know if Makhachev can tap him out. Like, Makhachev, is he the best wrestler that Bobby Green's faced in that span? Probably, in terms of the pure ability to get the fight down to where he wants to. But Bobby Green has some real spectacular get-up game. Like, the problems that will come up are after the third round. Because, yes, Bobby Green just fought. He fought a 3-rounder. Nasrat Haqparast looked great. He took some good shots, but this was like a week and a half ago. So will he have the juice to go 5 hard rounds if he needs to? Because, again, like Duffy said, I don't think he has that one-shot power to disable Islam like Adriano Martinez did back many years ago, the only guy to ever beat Islam Makhachev. But this is absolutely a trap fight. 100%. Islam Makhachev was preparing for Benny Dariush, a hard-hitting submission artist. This is not what Bobby brings. This is the kind of Bobby Green matchup that he might get so into his groove if he doesn't get grounded forever that he might try and take Makhachev down just to show he can. Like, you can see that kind of Bobby Green thing when he stops a takedown or gets out of the way and makes motions to his legs. You can see this as that kind of trap fight. My pick may ultimately reside with Makhachev when it comes to making my picks, but man, I can't. This is that this is that Masvidal type moment. Beat a very highly touted guy unexpectedly and surge up to the division to be in the top 5. Well, he'd be a top 5 guy if he beats Makhachev.
Mhm.
I can see it happening. And as of right now, I think I'm going to lean towards that, even though I obviously know that Makhachev could just grind him out for 2 rounds and get the Kimura or something.
Yeah, like it just I feel like going against my brain.
Yes,
right now.
That's exactly how I feel right here.
Yeah, it's like I'm like everything that I know about mixed martial arts, I just want to completely disregard that because this feels like something really, really crazy could happen. The one thing that gives me pause, but at the same time is like, oh, really? The 5-round aspect. That's I think the X factor here.
Yes.
We've seen Makhachev go out and just blast guys really quickly. Pause. We've seen him we've seen him be able to take his time over 3 rounds and just kind of slowly grind his way to a victory. We've seen Bobby Green style on Iaquinta in no time. And then we've seen him take his time with Hasbrat. Like, I don't know which approach is going to make the most sense here, but I do know that Makhachev has been training for a 5-rounder.
Yes.
That is the thing that works against Green. Even if he's coming in shape because he just came off of a fight, he was coming off of a 3-rounder. So the level of cardio just probably is not going to be the same. Man. And then I think, is Makhachev going to get into the same trap that happens to everybody who loses to Bobby Green? And that's responding to the things he says and the way he moves. We know, like, Khabib was able to hold it in the cage, but we saw all the emotion explode out of him, his hatred for McGregor when he jumped out of the cage and tried to curb stomp Dylan Dennis. So we know that the guys in that circle, I mean, we've seen them fight the Diaz brothers at WSOF, like in the stands. Like this is a proud group who will get down and will disregard safety and reasoning and logic to just bust somebody upside the head if they feel like it. He just might draw that out of Makhachev. And if he does Makhachev make the mistakes that are necessary for Green to capitalize? I don't know. I'm just intrigued, and I'm going to disregard my knowledge and say Bobby Green wins. Fuck it.
It's gonna be wild next week. Like even if Makhachev tosses him on the floor and does what he did to Dan Hooker and rips his arm off in a couple seconds, that's something nobody's done before. To Bobby Green, you don't just toss him around like
this is a make or break moment for both of them.
I think Dan Lozon in Affliction, I think, but it was a tough one.
Yeah, and there was like 12 years ago or something like that.
It's Affliction. Most people listening to the show have never heard of Affliction other than maybe a crappy t-shirt.
They've barely seen the crappy t-shirts. Like you can't find an Affliction shirt anymore, thank God. But yeah, this is some wild stuff potentially. So I'm okay with the anarchy. I'm okay with the chaos.
Me too.
Let's get it on.
Shout out to Tyler Treese and the chaos.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. So I think that's a fine place to conclude things. This edition of the Living Death Show. Ben, Jay, thanks once again for holding it down. You can find their work on Sherdog.com. You can check me out on MMA On Point. So remember, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful. Stay positive. Stay believing in the completely illogical. Stay disregarding your knowledge and make a pick based solely on your own desires for anarchy and chaos, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.